For as long as I can remember, I dreamed of being Miss America. This was a normal thing in my family. My mother was a former Miss Wisconsin and launched a really successful career. And so this seemed like a really rational way to get ahead in life to my sister and I. And so I competed for Miss Michigan for the first time when I was 20. And my goal was just to go, sort of learn the ropes, and figure out what I was doing so I could come back and really win it. And the way it works is they take the pool of contestants and they narrow it down until eventually there's a top 5, and then they call everyone out in reverse order, and the last girl left standing is the winner. And I find myself there standing in the top 5, and they call out the 4th runner-up, and the 3rd runner-up, and then the 2nd runner-up, and it's me. And I'm really excited, a little disappointed, but I'd gotten so close and I knew that I could really do it. And I knew I was gonna come back with a vengeance. So the next year, I once again find myself in that top 5. And they call out the 4th runner-up, and the 3rd runner-up, and the 2nd runner-up. And there I am holding this girl's hands, and the MC gets on the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, if for any reason the new Miss Michigan cannot fulfill her duties, the 1st runner-up will take her place. Your 1st runner-up is Gina Valo!" And I clapped, and I was so disappointed, and I watched as this girl walked the runway, and I said to myself, okay, that's it. The pressure is on. I have one more year, one more chance to really do this. And so I went back, ready to do this, and I once again find myself in that top 5. And they call out the 4th runner-up, and the 3rd runner-up, and the 2nd runner-up, and there I am holding a different girl's hands. And the MC gets on the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, if for any reason the new Miss Michigan cannot fulfill her duties, the 1st runner-up will take her place. Your 1st runner-up is Gina Valo!" And my heart sunk into my stomach. I was crushed. I watched as they placed the crown on this girl's head. She was 18, first time, came out of nowhere, won the whole thing. And all I could think of, I said to myself, that's it. It's over. I will never be Miss Michigan. I will never be Miss America. And I was really disappointed. And my friends and family struggled with it as well. And they tried to make me feel better by saying things like, "Oh, you were so much better, and you were robbed, and she looked naked in that dress." And she did look naked in that dress, but it was not a bad thing. And the truth be told, I liked the girl. She was great, she was talented. I actually thought she deserved to win. I just thought that I did too. And so for the first time in my life, I'd really put a lot of effort into something and failed. And I'm the kind of person that thinks everything happens for a reason. And so I started looking for that reason, which is when I met David. And David, he was the kind of good looking that only comes with a lot of narcissism and major issues. And so David and I, from the moment I met him, I was trying to convince myself that meeting him was the reason why I didn't win Miss Michigan. And David was trying to convince me to move to Chicago because that would be really convenient for him. And so he wore me down, and he said things like, "Oh, you've got to get over that kid stuff, and you got to move on with your life," and it, convinced me over time that this was the right thing for me. I need to move on. And so I had this really great job at Google at the time in Ann Arbor, and I put in for this transfer to the Chicago office that everyone, including me, knew was a step backwards in my career. And as the time grew closer, I realized I was making a mistake, but I knew that I couldn't get out of it without a lot of embarrassment, and so I decided to go through with it. And a couple weeks before I made the move, I went over to a friend's house to watch the Miss America pageant. And I come in, and it's on the wall, there's like glitter, and it's like pink, it looks like a 6-year-old's birthday party, but with grown women. And we were so excited to watch Miss Michigan compete. And we watched her make it in the top 15, and then the top 10, and then the top 5, and then she's standing there holding some other girls' hands. And the MC gets on the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, your new Miss America is Miss Michigan! And the room went nuts. Not just because our friend just won Miss America, but because everyone knew what it meant for me. If, for any reason, the new Miss Michigan could not fulfill her duties, the first runner-up will take her place. I got a phone call from the executive director asking me if I would accept the title of Miss Michigan now that she was busy. And I said, absolutely. And there in my friend's living room, in my sweatpants, I became Miss Michigan. What was so great about it was not just that I got to do this, but also that there was literally no better excuse to not move to Chicago than to stay and be Miss Michigan. And so for the next 6 months, I was a Googler by day and Miss Michigan by every other waking moment. This one time, I found myself at a Walmart grand opening in Flint, Michigan at about 6 a.m., sitting on a throne of Diet Right, signing autographs. Dream come true. And so most of the time, I actually spent traveling around the state talking to kids about my experience, and not as the girl who got everything I ever wanted, but as someone who knew what it felt like to try my best and fail. And I talked to these kids about how important it is to really passionately go after things that matter to you, but to not get too attached to outcomes. And it was a message that I wish I had heard or drilled into me when I was that age. And while I never had the chance to become Miss America, the experience that I did have was much deeper and far more meaningful than I ever could have imagined for myself.